Okay, so now it's Matthew Mickey here. In this video, we're going to talk about the yield curve. And so we talked about bonds in different ways. The government gets money and businesses get money when the revenue's not cut in it. So now, why would we invest in bonds though? Well, some consider it a risk-free trade, and the Treasury has different risk-free trades that you can do. They have T-notes, they have T-bills, they have T-bonds. And the only difference between those are the length of how long they're going to borrow your money if you purchase one. So a T-note is from 1 month to 1 year. A T-bill is from 1 year to 10 years. And a T-bond is from 10 years to 30 years. That means if you get a purchase T-bond at 30 year, if you lend your money out for 30 years to the Treasury, you're purchasing a T-bond. If you're lending the government your money for 1 month, that would be a T-note. Okay, but they all are the same. They all are loans to the federal governments, but like we said before, for a different time. And that's when the government is short on cash, and what they can do is they can increase taxes throughout monetary policy, aka government policies, and pay back their debt, right? Obviously, with this concept, you should get more payment from the interest with a 30-year bond than a 1 month T-bill, T-note. Why? Only so much can happen in a month. It's less riskier, so anywhere in the market, you get paid for risk that you manage, right? In this market, the Treasury is the same. So as you can see in the picture, normal is less time, less risk, less interest paid to you for lending your money to them. Okay? So now, let's talk about what determines the rate of the time frames which create the curve. Well, let's talk about it from this, right? So if you watch the Wham Bam, How the Wham Bam Happens video that I created, it'll hit on some of this, right? And then I'll also be doing future videos on how money is created the right way, not through a printer. Okay, so the Treasury of whichever government needs to borrow money because they can't control their spending. Let's say they need to borrow $1 billion in 1 month notes, right? They have an auction from big banks with invite only, and they auction it off. Now, if there are a lot of banks that want to lend the 1 month note, obviously the interest rate will be lower. Remember the car dealership example? It's all about supply and demand. Now, if the big banks don't want to invest in the dollar because they may think the country will default, the Treasury will raise the interest rate to coach them into doing it, right? Remember, they need to borrow money for a reason, and if they're borrowing the shorter term bonds, then it's probably because an emergency happened within that country. Okay, so auctions are done for all the time frames. So after the auction, where you lent the government money, they give you a Treasury, which you can trade with other people, and that determines the short-term rates as well. Now, people in the public market get freaked out when you sell the short-term Treasuries because they don't understand how this all works, right? And the public market will then expect a higher yield on the shorter-term bonds, right? Now, we can use the yield curve to see if the market is healthy or not from an economic standpoint. In my next video, we'll cover the way to use yield curves as an indication. So hopefully this helped.